I'm Carrie Bourne. I'm from the Office of Continuing Education at UW-Whitewater. And as you know, we have partnered with Fairhaven Senior Services since 1983 to offer the Fairhaven Lecture Series. This semester we're wrapping up. This will be our final lecture of the semester. We've been talking about our stories and our future, and we couldn't tell Whitewater's story without including students who live here in the community in our residence halls. So today we have Terry Tumbarello. He serves as the Executive Director of University Housing at UW-Whitewater. Terry has worked in housing and residence life at UW-Whitewater for 28 years in various positions. He earned his bachelor degree in finance and his master's in higher education administration from Eastern Illinois University. Terry has worked in housing and residence life for over 35 years at 3 different campuses. Please welcome Terry Tumbarello.
Well, thank you for that, Carrie. Well, thank you for being here. How's everyone doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm going to have to learn not to stand right in front of the screen. Sorry. So, as Carrie said, my name is Terry, and I have the privilege and pleasure of hitting the button before I was supposed to. I'm going to put that right there for now. The privilege and pleasure to serve as the Executive Director of University Housing. It's a role that I've been in for about 4.5 years, but I've worked in university housing on campus for 28. I started in July of 1998, and the then Chancellor is back in the back. Chancellor Greenhill was, who knows, might have signed off on my initial hire form. I don't know if that was how they did it back then. But I started off as a hall director, and I said in my interview I'd be there 1 to 2 years. Well, as you can see, that's worked out pretty good for me because I'm still here, and I'm in probably the 7th or 8th position since then. Housing is such an integral part of university community life, that residential experience. And we run the 2nd largest housing program in the state of Wisconsin, and we're very, very proud of that. There's that little school up north, just up the highway there a little bit. That's a little bit larger than us. Actually, Madison their housing program is about twice the size of ours. But we're still the 2nd largest in the state, and it's really not that close. We house about 4,400 students. The vast majority of our students are undergraduates, with the majority of them being 1st and 2nd year students. We do house a fair amount of juniors and seniors. And when I say fair amount, it's less than 500, but it's in the 440s. So we certainly have a few hundred students who self-select to stay with us all 4 years. And what I'm going to talk about today, we'll get a little bit more about housing today towards the end, but what I'm going to talk about today is this transition of how residence halls have evolved through the years. And so the title is The Evolution from Dorms to Residence Halls. The dreaded D word is a word that you don't hear me say too often. I don't correct students, but I don't use it professionally. And it's because in my field, a dorm is really viewed as just a place where there's a bed and you sleep, and that's it. And today's residence halls are really dynamic student success centers. Frankly, I've often made this comparison that places like Fairhaven assisted living are incredibly similar to residence halls. There's programming like this. There's places that have meals. You might do field trips. There's staff that help run the place. And community living and community building is what this place thrives on. So a lot of similarities to university living in that residential community, to senior centers as well. So let's dive into this. My plan is to quickly go through this presentation. Then I have a very short video. It's about 6 minutes. And then there should be time at the end to answer any questions you might have. So back in the mid-1900s, when dormitories were first brought in around 1950, they were large shared rooms, community bathrooms. There were dorm moms. You didn't have functional, professional, residential hall directors like we do today. Gender separation was an absolute must. In some places in the 70s, 80s, you started to see co-ed living grow. RAs became more common. I was an RA at my undergrad for a number of years. It was a terrific experience and frankly gave me my career. And the buildings I was in were co-ed, but not by floor, right? And there were still very strict rules about opposite genders, opposite sex in those floors, especially after hours. Then in the 1990s, we saw more computers and cable and Ethernet and suite style options started changing expectations. We were starting to move away from community bathrooms when we were doing new builds, having more common area spaces. 2010, you see amenities expand, lounges, study rooms, fitness spaces, and this thing we call residential living learning communities, which is something that thrives at UW-Whitewater. We currently have 17 residential learning communities in our portfolio, and they're just a terrific tool to support student success. Then in the 2020s, we've evolved to privacy and well-being, accessibility, digital support, and those are the things that students are looking for. So the biggest shift wasn't just in the buildings, it was the idea that students where they live can also support how they learn, how they connect, how they grow. And so as I said earlier, from a dorm to student success centers. So the room itself changed, right? And so as you can see from the two different pictures, this picture I found online is probably from around 1954. Shared rooms were common, sometimes with 3, 4, even more students. Furniture was basic and it was built to last and take a beating. There was a hallway phone, kind of those old party lines that the entire floor shared. And there might have been a bulletin board somewhere in the center, maybe near the bathroom, where you would post programs and events that were coming up. Today we have more options such as singles, suites, pods, apartments. Everything is, at least most things should be accessible. In some places, everything. Obviously, most of you probably know that UW-Whitewater, we have a special mission to serve students with disabilities, so our facilities are extremely accessible. Students expect study spaces, storage, climate control, and room customization. What students see as basic now includes strong Wi-Fi and charging for devices. So one of the things we've seen is something that was considered a true amenity 10, 15 years ago, today is expected. Another thing I would throw on there that is something that's kind of my reality and I'm working through right now is air conditioning. Right? Well, when I started in this field, air conditioning was an amenity. And if you had it, that was great. But it wasn't an expectation, especially in the residence hall business, because we house students typically, traditionally, from September to early May, sometimes middle May. And we weren't housing students in June, July, August, where the air conditioning might have been more of an expectation. So daily life in the residence halls changed too. So then there were things like curfews, visitation limits, and more emphasis on supervision. You know, when I was an RA, we had to enforce escort policies and visitation. Opposite sex had to be out of the building by midnight. Today, students are expected to manage far more independence and personal responsibility. We have co-ed buildings, and we even have something called gender-inclusive housing. And that is 2 students who are not the same gender can live together if they both request each other. Staffing and support. Then we had, I said dorm moms, but house mothers was another term. And there was dean of women and dean of men. And now RAs and professional staff help with conflict, crisis, belonging, academics, and referrals. Community life, social events were important, but less intentionally tied to student development. They were more tied to just fun. Today, while we still do fun programming, programs often include wellness, life skills, tutoring, leadership, and career support. So at UW-Whitewater, We have in Wells Hall, which is our large high-rise, we have what we call the Academic Success Center, where 5 nights a week, Sunday through Thursday, we have events in the Academic Success Center. Some of it's tutoring, academic advising, career services. But the premise I was going for when I created that was, instead of expecting students to go to these resources all over campus, to take advantage of the captive audience and bring the resources to students. And that's worked well. Technology has totally rewired university housing. We talked earlier about the shared hall phones or the party phones, and students were using typewriters. Personal TVs in the 80s became a big thing. Answering machines. Students were using answering machines and big clunky computers. Then we had Ethernet laptops. Now Wi-Fi is everywhere, including outside on campus. There's smartphones, all types of streaming services. So a couple examples, let's talk about the evolution of cable TV. So when I first started my career, a building like Wells Hall didn't have cable yet. And because it's a high-rise, the most popular place to live in Wells was high up, and on one side of the building that received better TV antenna reception than the other side of the building, right? And today, we are in our final year of our cable contract, and my intention is not to renew it. Because most of our students, when we do our surveys and assess it, tell me they're not using it. And they're using the streaming services that are provided, and they all have their own Netflix and HBO Max and all the other things that they subscribe to. And so so I remember before residence halls had it, and we're going to see cable leaving. Let's continue. Today's student needs are broader. More residence halls are expected to support much more than a place to sleep. We've talked about that feeling and sense of belonging and community, mental health and well-being support, accessibility, privacy, inclusion, and then I've already talked about academic and career support. So the reality is, if you were to look at student behavior and challenges that housing staff had 20 years ago versus today, one of the things you'll see is that back then we managed a lot more alcohol, right? Students drank more, and we had a lot more alcohol-related problems than what we see today. Today's student, and I'm generalizing, right? I'm not going to tell you we never have any issues with alcohol, but today's student drinks less. They also smoke less, but they're vaping, right? So the behaviors have evolved as our society has evolved. What has not changed and what comes next? So still true, students still arrive excited, nervous, and ready for new friendships. Roommates and neighbors still shape some of the best college memories, and living away from home is still a major step towards independence. Right? You know, and I would say that is true for residential living. What we're seeing a little more globally and nationally when it comes to college life is colleges are also catering to a far more inclusive student body, and not necessarily just that traditional residential age group that would go off to college and live in the residence halls through virtual online learning and other things. What's in our future? More privacy and flexible room options, right? Most of my students would love a single room if they could get one, and they want their own bathroom. They don't want to share with anybody, right? Well, that's uber expensive, right? Smarter buildings, digital systems, app-based services. More focus on wellness, inclusion, sustainability, and accessibility. Yeah. So, you know, as we've already talked, Whitewater is really fortunate and privileged that we're extremely accessible. But even in our residence halls, there's more we can do as technology provides us different insights and opportunities. For example, today's student still accesses their residence hall through a hard key. One of my visions, one of my goals in my role is to get to a point where they access their residence hall and their room through their smartphone. And their smartphone is their mobile access to the building and to their room. All right, now, Carrie talked me through it. Let's see how easily I can get this video going here.
Welcome to UW-Whitewater. College is an exciting time in life, and we are happy that you chose Whitewater. We would like to begin by showing you what to expect when living in the residence halls. We will also walk you through our housing options and discuss the role university housing plays on campus. UW-Whitewater features 12 traditional residence halls, 1 pod-style hall, and 1 suite-style hall. In our traditional residence hall rooms, the following furniture is provided: 2 desks, 2 chairs, 2 dressers, 2 bed frames, 2 twin extra-long mattresses, and 2 closets or shelving units. Be advised, university furniture must stay in the room, so be creative with the room setup to maximize space. Lofting is a great option. All of our halls offer modular beds that can be bunked or lofted with a rented kit. Bunking beds is when one bed is simply placed on top of the other bed and does not require a loft kit. If the student wants to have the bed off the ground and place a futon, desk, or other items under the bed, a rented loft kit would be required. Lofts are available to rent through a partnership with bedloft.com. The last day to order your bed loft and have it delivered to your room prior to your arrival on campus is August 5th. Our first piece of advice for incoming students is to talk to your roommate. If your roommate has a microwave to bring, you do not need to. The maximum wattage allowed is 900 watts. This goes for all furniture and appliances, including a refrigerator that is 4.7 cubic feet max, TV, gaming system, and futon. Things to bring that make your room feel more like home include pictures, posters, and room decorations. All residence halls do not allow pets except for harmless fish in a tank that is smaller than 20 gallons. See uww.edu/housing for a complete list of policies. Your residence hall also provides the following amenities: a computer lab with printing capabilities, high-speed wireless internet connections within each room, a laundry facility where the cost of laundry is included in the housing rates, a full kitchen, vending machines, a pool table, 24-hour-a-day secured entry, study lounges on each floor, a front desk, and multi-purpose rooms. The front desk is staffed by students and offers items residents can check out. These include kitchen equipment, sporting goods, and games. The halls provide mail service from USPS. Students who have been awarded work study through their financial aid package are encouraged to apply for the front desk positions. Applications can be found through your student portal. Other campus job opportunities are advertised there. Students are expected to clean their own rooms. The front desk provides free garbage bags and offers vacuums that can be checked out by presenting a student ID. University housing employs live-in staff for each hall. Complex directors and assistant complex directors are responsible for day-to-day operations. In addition, each hall averages 2 residence assistants per floor, who help facilitate positive learning standards and encourage an environment for academic success. Resident assistants, or RAs for short, are a great resource for individual assistance and can help with problems that may occur. The residence halls also have involvement groups such as LIT and RHA. Leadership Involvement Team, or LIT, organizes student involvement through activities coordinated by floor representatives and event planners. Residence Hall Association, or RHA, is an organization that promotes interaction among different residence halls. RHA programs provide social, cultural, and intellectual development in the residence hall community. The residence halls offer a variety of specialty living options. These include learning communities, global village, substance-free, and quiet study. University housing has a great working relationship with the university police. These state-licensed police officers are an important part of our UW-Whitewater community. Additionally, the residence halls have 2 residence hall officers assigned specifically to university housing. These officers focus their time on residence hall and community living programming and interacting with the students to ensure their safety. Wells East and Wells West both stand 10 stories high and feature some exciting places open to all on-campus residents. The University Fitness Center is located in the lower level. This is one of 2 fitness centers located on campus. The other is the Williams Center. For information on memberships, please go to the Rec Sports website. Jetter's Coffee House is located on the first floor. You can buy various coffee and ice cream drinks, enjoy live entertainment, play board games, and attend designated study nights. Wells is the home of the Academic Success Center. This is a partnership with academic advising and other collaborations to support student success. It allows students to receive help in the residence hall where they live. Additional sites are available in other residence halls as well. Our state-of-the-art esports arena provides a space for our students to recreationally and competitively game. This space also provides the home field for our very own UW-Whitewater esports team to compete at the collegiate level. Students will be able to identify a preferred roommate through the roommate match section.
All right, I'm going to stop it there because I'm not sure any of you are interested in when the deadline to apply for housing for the fall is. But if I'm wrong, just see me afterwards, the Q&A, and we can talk about that. So a couple things that the video reminded me that I think you might find of interest. Let's talk laundry. So today, our laundry facilities, and there's laundry rooms in every single building. Most of them are in the basement. But our laundry facilities are part of your housing charge. So you don't have to feed it with quarters. They don't take any money, no card swipes. It's incorporated into your room costs already for unlimited use. They're also smart machines. And what that means is you can download the app to the machines and you can check from the comfort of your room which machines are open. You can set it up to text you when your load is done or when a machine is available, right? That thing will probably fry an egg for you if you know how to program it. Right? Additionally, computer labs, right? So we started putting computer labs into these buildings sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. And through the years, the size of the computer, the types of computer, what was included in the computer, that changed and ebbed and flowed. Today, one of the things I'm looking at is it's probably time to downsize our computer labs. I think students are using our computer, well, I don't think, I know from data, and I looked at it in a meeting as recent as last week, students are spending less time in the computer labs and less time using our computers. But what is just as prevalent and what they will still need is print stations. So even though I think we're going to downsize our computer labs, we might actually be increasing our print stations. I think I see some student affirmation in the back, tells me that I'm going down the right path. So if you think about some hotels you might have walked into, and in the lobby there's kiosks that you can send your print job right to that kiosk and just go down to the lobby of the residence hall and release your print program and it prints. So we might not even have spaces like computer labs in the near future. We might just have different print kiosks throughout the buildings. Thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up. All right, glad to hear it. So, I promised there'd be time for questions and answers. What kinds of questions do you have? Yes, please. Sir.
Jerry will be coming.
Oh.
I'll let you keep the microphone, Terry. You'll just repeat his question after.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I'll repeat every question I hear.
At one time there was talk about designating floors for students who had similar majors. Is anything like that going on?
Yep, so the question is, there was talk at one point about designating floors with students with similar majors. So yes, if you recall, I talked about how we had living learning communities. And so that's really the same concept. So at UW-Whitewater right now, we have 17 learning communities. And they are based by major and academic interest. And so the premise of a learning community is you will live with a cluster of students, somewhere usually between 15 and 25 students who are in that learning community as well. And they're all for first-year students, so you're going to live on the same floor. You're going to have some of your classes that are cohort together. It's not your entire class schedule. Depending on the learning community, it's anywhere from 2 to 4 classes that you're going to be together. But the premise is in the evenings and on weekends, when you have questions about homework, assignments, exams, you're all right there together for those group study and opportunities to help each other out. Our research on campus tells us that, and we've been doing learning communities since about 2004, that our learning communities have a higher rate of graduation, higher GPA, higher retention, less vandalism, less behavior issues, and they eat less junk food. I made that last one up. I don't know if that's true. Great question. Another one, please.
Are freshmen and sophomores required to live in the dormitories if they don't have elsewhere?
Yep.
If they don't have elsewhere.
Yeah, so the question is, what is your current residency requirement for freshmen and sophomore students? Are they required to live on campus? And the answer is yes. There is a system state statute that requires first and second year residency requirement if the university has enough available housing, and we do at UW-Whitewater. Now, there's some exceptions. If you're married, if you have a child, if you live within 40 miles and can commute from home, those are the most common exceptions to the on-campus living requirement. Great questions. What else? Any other questions? Yes?
How competitive would you say Whitewater is with other schools in those things we talked about? Are we leading it, or are we the pack, or where are we?
Well, I'm going to answer that question owning that I have some biases, right? And I have some skin in the game. But I will tell you, I also have the data to prove it, that UW-Whitewater runs one of the best housing programs in the Midwest. I'll never claim to be the best, but we're in every single conversation, and we do have the data that backs that up. And by the way, while I know that's true for university housing, in general, that's true for the university, right? We are very privileged to have a university that is firing on all cylinders, right? And thriving. Great question. Other questions? Yes.
Can you talk about the students who go to UROC, but then also
Yeah.
go to the norm?
Yeah, that's a great point. So the question is, students are at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater Rock County campus, and if they're living in the residence halls. And the answer is yes. So ever since we have had this relationship in which we have Rock as part of our campus, we have been housing students from the Rock County campus. This past fall, we housed 173 students. I was actually looking at numbers for the fall this morning for Rock students, and it's a little early, but it looks like our numbers are going to hold to be pretty similar to last year. So anywhere, depending on the year, 160 to 180 students from the Rock County campus living in our residence halls. And we support a shuttle that takes them back and forth to Janesville, and it's really been a very good relationship for us and a great way for our satellite campus students to feel connected to the main campus.
Do they have a residence hall in Janesville?
The question is, do they have a residence hall in Janesville? And they do not.
So they're here.
Yep. One of the main differences between the two campuses is all of UW-Whitewater's Whitewater property is owned by the state. The Rock County campus property is owned by the county, even though the state maintains it. So it's a little different relationship. If we were to look at a residence hall on that campus, I think it would be very complicated, not to mention a fairly lengthy endeavor.
How wide are the hallways in those residence halls?
So the question is how wide are the hallways? So it depends. Right now we have 14 different residence halls at UW-Whitewater, and my most narrow hallways would be Wells Hall. The hallways are fairly narrow, and my widest hallways would probably be our last two buildings we recently built, Myingen and Pulliam, and those hallways are quite large, quite wide. Yeah. Great questions. Yes, sir.
You have data to support how safe the campus is.
So the question is about how.
They used to have a program to watch students home at night. Do you have that?
Yep, so the question is about campus safety and with data. So we certainly do an awful lot to support safety and security And our data through the years has been very positive compared to other schools. There is a federal law called the Clery Act that requires us to gather crime statistics and publish it. And we know from those statistics that Whitewater's numbers look very favorable. Right? So you asked about the Safe Walk program, which is the one I think you're referencing, and that still exists. So any student on campus at any time of day, 8 days a week, can call the non-emergency police, and one of their student employees, actually they go in pairs of two, their student employees, which are called campus support officers, will come and walk you from wherever you need to go from A to B on campus. And so that exists. Other things we do to support campus safety that has changed through the years. When I started at Whitewater, the residence halls were open and unlocked during the day. Today, every single residence hall is locked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also have put door scopes, which is the technical term, but we probably call them peepholes, in every university residence hall room door. So if someone's knocking on your door, you can go to your peephole, take a look to see who's knocking, so you can make the decision if you want to open the door or not. Right? And if it's your roommate and they forgot their keys, let them in. Yes?
Back to the security of walking
Sure.
someone. How often is that courtesy used?
So the question is, how often is our Safe Walk program utilized by students? And it's a very great question. I strongly dislike asking questions and not being able to answer them. But I will tell you that I don't know that figure off the top of my head since University Police runs it. I do know that it's utilized. I know that housing promotes it as well as many other parts of campus promote it to students. And I believe it's very popular, but I couldn't tell you about actual usage. Yes. Pardon me? And or I don't have the gender data either. Your question, and we'll get back to you, sir. So the Safe Walk program is available 24 hours a day. Now, I do know it's more common and more popular in the evenings and nighttime. I don't know how many calls they get during the day. Yes?
Do you have any difficulty when students are coming in and unloading? Because at one time, at one day, a semester, I remember, cars were backed up from Wells Hall all the way out past on Main Street, all the way out to the curve past where the Quick Trip is now.
So the question is about move-in day and how backed up parking is for loading and unloading. Are you a plant? Because you just gave me great material to talk about. You know, initially I thought he was going to complain about a parking ticket he got back in the day. I was like, well, I could help you out with that, but the interest on that might kill me. So this is a great question because this is another example that's something that's totally evolved. So the first half of my career, first 2/3 of my career, move-in day also meant chaos because we were welcoming back to the university and to the residence halls thousands of students and their families. And some of them showed up in multiple different cars and even a few in moving vans and lots of stuff. COVID, and this is one of the positive things that came out of COVID, when we were trying to run the residence halls during COVID, which is a whole different presentation probably, we realized that we had to create an opening experience that also honored social distancing. And so we created what's called Drop and Go. And this is a program that was so popular, we do it today, and we're going to do it again this year, this summer. In Drop and Go, we take 10 days in August, in which students and their families can sign up for a 90-minute shift, and they come and they can unload, they can set up their room, they can bring as much as they want, but then it's in the name, Drop and Go, but then they go home. Right? And they go back and then they return on move-in day. Now, if you're a student who's coming from afar, maybe you're coming from Arizona or North Carolina or Kentucky, whatever, I'm not going to name all the other 49, we do allow you to sign up for a drop and go date that's a little bit later and closer to opening, and then you do stay. But the majority of our students drop and go, and doing that allows us to spread out that traffic over the 10 days and all day long, and there just isn't the same issues we used to have. You're not fighting for that great parking space that's closest to the building. There's plenty of our moving carts, right? We have these big laundry bins that students can use to move their stuff. There's not the long lines outside of the elevator. So Drop and Go has solved all of those issues.
How about summer?
Summer housing?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do have summer housing. Ironically, the application closed for summer housing on Friday, May 1st. So I hope you got yours in. And we are in the process of assigning summer housing. This year we had about 210 students apply for summer housing, and we'll be able to house all of them. Obviously, it's a very small program compared to the academic year because most of our places and spaces in the summer are used for camps and conferences. Right? And so, well, we do cleaning, we do deep cleaning, we do painting. If we have repair issues, we try to do those in the summer. So the summer is very busy, frankly. It's just a different busy than the academic year. This summer, Wells West is getting 2 new elevators. So that entire tower of that building is being taken offline this summer so we can put in new elevators. Those elevators were the original elevators. The building was built in 1968. So they're kind of at end of life, but we also think we got our money's worth out of those elevators, right? Right. So we thank our friend Jerry Gorby for that great purchase. We're also putting on a roof in Wells because that roof is also end of life. It's the original roof, and they don't make them like they used to because my new roof I won't get that same lifespan out of. And we're not going to start it this summer, but we're starting to talk about and design renovations to Benson Hall. And Benson bathrooms are going to be renovated. The building's going to be tuck pointed. We're also going to do some fire suppression stuff. So we're going to do some different things and put in new windows and do some different things in Benson Hall that we think will be popular with students. But in the summer is a very vibrant, very active camps and conference program that is just critical to our campus. Running a very full and strong camps and conference program. First of all, I think it's a recruitment tool, right? We know that a lot of students who have positive experiences in their youth camps at a campus remember that, and when it's time to shop for a college, they're going to think about, if they had a good experience on our campus, they're going to think about coming here for school. So it's a recruitment tool. It's probably the only way I can employ most of my staff for 12 months out of the year is because we offer a camp program. Right? And it's another way for us to get revenue out of our buildings as opposed to all of them sitting dormant, pun intended on that term, during the summer months. So it's a really important program for us.
Is there competition amongst the students to get a certain dorm?
Yes.
Sorry,
yeah.
residents.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. You're allowed. So the question is what's the competition that exists for your more premium residence halls? So our 2 newest buildings are Meiningen and Pulliam Hall. Pulliam was built in 2010 and opened in 2010, I should say, and Meiningen opened in 2019. And those 2 residence halls are very different than the rest of ours because they're pod and suite style. They have their own bathrooms. They're immensely popular with students, and we have wait lists for both of them. They're the first 2 buildings to fill. By and large, any of my renovated buildings go faster than my non-renovated buildings. That's not hard, that's not a surprise to me. However, there are still students who have preferences that aren't because just the building's renovated. Some students, and by the way, this would be me, some students just love the Wells experience. Wells is such a fantastic community because there's so many students there. There's always something to do. And then we have students who prefer buildings like Lee because they might be athletes and it's close to the Williams Center. So it just depends on some of our students who are music majors and want to be close to the Center of the Arts. They prefer Benson because it's closest. So it just kind of depends on who you are and what your preferences are.
Do they still call Wells the zoo?
I am familiar with that term, but I would say I've spent a career trying to eradicate it. Right? Here's what I'll tell you about Wells. Is if my kids were going to Whitewater, and they're not. My youngest graduates from UW-Madison next Saturday. So I've already written my last tuition check. I'm pretty happy about that. But if my kids went to this campus, I'd want them to live in Wells. Wells has things that no other building has. It has the Academic Success Center where we have tutoring. It has Jitters, our student-run coffee house. There's so many different amenities that we can do in Wells that you don't get anywhere else. And that community is like I said, especially if you are outgoing and like lots of programming and lots of social activity, that's Wells.
Maybe we'd like to move from Fairhaven.
I could probably arrange that. I know a guy.
Would juniors
Yes, sir.
and seniors get preference to the two new residence halls?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the question is about who gets preferential placement in the two newest buildings. So Maingat and Pulliam are not available to first-year students. They're only for returning students. And it's based on credit hours. So the more credits you have, the more likely you're going to get in. Okay? There's a question over here in the back. So the question is about accommodations for international students. So we do house a fair number of international students, and that ebbs and flows throughout the year. Prior to COVID, we had what was called the Global Village. And that was a special community we ran for international students. And the vision with the Global Village is domestic students had an opportunity to live with an international student and then have some very shared collaborations and good community experiences there. As our international population declined when COVID hit, and then politically it's been slow to grow, we have not been able to offer that community. But we do see international student populations increasing, both on campus but also nationally, hopefully soon, which is a positive thing. And if we ever had to get back to that, we would. Today, we do have international students on campus live in our residence halls. And right now, they pretty much live wherever they want and based on their preferences. Did that answer your question? Correct. In the residence halls, yes. Yep. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Where do married students live?
So the question about married students. So we do not have any special living options for married students at UW-Whitewater. We do occasionally have married students that apply and then live together through our gendered inclusive housing, but there is not a dedicated space for it. Probably have on an average anywhere from 1 to 3 married couples a year in our residence halls. So for us, it's a really, really small population.
You don't have a lot of children then, huh?
Children are not allowed in. Your dependents, if you have children, they're not allowed in our residence halls. They can visit, but they can't live there.
I was thinking about grad students that are older that would have children.
Yeah, no, we have in Whitewater. There's as many of you know, there's a strong off-campus housing options that will accommodate those students. We're just not built for those kinds of spaces. So, another great question. Anything else? Yeah, you folks were tough. Right, you did. I'm going to charge double next time. All right, well, I want to thank you for your attention, for your questions. It's been a pleasure to be here, and hope to be back at some point. Thank you.